And now, a story from the Appleseed.
When I was a little boy, I grew up in a little house that was built about 1900. We heard that when that house was built, it didn't even have a bathroom. It had an outhouse in the backyard. But somebody who owned the house before we did had closed in part of the back porch, and we had a bathroom. We had about everything we needed except one thing. We didn't have heat. We just about froze to death in that place in the wintertime. There was a big wood stove in the kitchen where my mother cooked, and mostly we stayed in the kitchen in the winter because it was warm in there because there was always a fire in that wood stove. We also had a fireplace in the living room, and we always had a fire in the fireplace in the living room, always during cold weather, except one night of the year. We never had a fire in that fireplace on Christmas Eve. Because we were born knowing, just like you were born knowing, that Santa Claus comes down the chimney. So on the afternoon of Christmas Eve, we would let the fire go out, and then my daddy would clean all the ashes and all the leftover little unburned pieces of wood out of the fireplace. My mother would sweep it out, and she would even take our Electrolux vacuum cleaner, and she would vacuum out the fireplace and clean it all up because we didn't want Santa Claus to get dirty in our fireplace and go tell everybody else in the world that he got dirty in the Davis's fireplace coming down the chimney. And then on Christmas Eve, when it was almost time to go to bed, we would take our Christmas stockings, which actually were just clean socks, and we would hang them up on the mantle above the fireplace. And when we got up on Christmas morning, you know where our presents were. There they were, right in front of the fireplace, where Santa Claus had come down the chimney and filled up our stockings and left our other presents there as well. And that's the way the world was made. And that's the way things happened year after year after year. Now, one of the problems in our family was that my mother was born cold and never got over it. She was just freezing all the time in the cold weather. If you got up early in the morning, you could sneak in the kitchen and catch her because she would get up before anybody else and build up the fire in the wood stove. And when it got really going, she would pull a little chair up in front of that stove and open the oven door and wrap her feet up in a towel and stick her feet in the oven to get thawed out from being cold that night before. Well, one day near the end of the summer, my daddy came home and he said to our mother, Lucille, you're never going to be cold again. And she said, What? He said, yes, they had a big sale at Massive Furniture Company, and I bought us what's called a Siegler oil heater to go in the living room, and from now on, we're going to be warm in the wintertime. And men came the next day, and they brought in this big heater. It was square, and it was tall, and it was dark brown and cream colored. We thought it was so pretty. It was beautiful. And they showed my daddy how to light a Kleenex and drop it in the door and turn on the oil, and it would poof up, and you could look through a little window and see the fire in there. And my mother was so excited because now when cold weather came, she was going to be warm. Well, what I didn't explain was to put that heater in the living room, you know what they had to do? They had to put a metal plate over the fireplace. And that metal plate had a round hole in it where the stovepipe from the heater went into that round hole. And then the heater sat on the hearth right in front of where the fireplace used to be. But we didn't think about that. We were going to be warm now. In October, we had our first cold night, and my daddy started up the heater, and it got warm, and our mother went in there and hugged it and held on to it. And when the heat finally came all the way through her, some of the rest of us got a little bit of it. And when it got the living room warm, we could open the doors that went right into our bedrooms in that little tiny house, and it was warm all over, and everything was fine. Till about a week before Christmas. One night we finished eating our supper, and my little brother asked if he could go play in the living room because it was warm in there. And my mother said, "Thank you for asking." And he disappeared in the living room. The rest of us were still sitting at the table. And then all of a sudden, we heard him screaming. And we went running into the living room, and he was rolling over in the floor screaming and pointing to that oil heater. And my mother said, "What's the matter? Did you get burned?" And he said, No, we're gonna kill Santa Claus. He's gonna try to come down the chimney, and he's gonna get burned up alive, and he's gonna get killed, and everybody in the world's gonna know we're the people who killed Santa Claus. We're gonna kill Santa Claus. And my mother looked at my daddy and said, "Joe, you're gonna have to take out the oil heater till after Christmas." My daddy did not take out the heater. He got me and my little brother, and we went out to the garage where he kept all kinds of stuff. And we got 2 pieces of plywood that were square. And we got white paint and red paint. And we painted the plywood white. And then when it dried, my daddy wrote the letters, and my brother and I, with a little paintbrush, we painted red paint on top of the letters till we made 2 big signs. One of the signs said, "Notice, this chimney is closed. Go in the front door." And the other sign said, "Welcome. The door is unlocked. Come in here." And when the paint dried, we watched my daddy lean the ladder up against the front of the house, and he climbed up the ladder, and with wire, he wired that sign that said, "This chimney is closed," to the chimney. So when Santa Claus landed on top of the house, he would see that sign that said, "Chimney closed, go in the front door." And then he took the other sign that said, "Welcome, the door is unlocked, come in here," and he nailed it right over the front door of our house. Isn't it amazing we didn't get robbed? And he said, "That ought to take care of that." And we started in the front door, and all of a sudden my little brother just fell down crying. And my daddy said, "What is wrong now?" And my little brother Joe said, "What if Santa Claus didn't go to school and he doesn't know how to read?" And my mother said, "He knows how to read. He has to write all the instructions for all the toys he makes." Well, we weren't sure about that. And we were really worried on Christmas Eve when we couldn't hang our stockings over the chimney anymore. We had to hang our stockings over the doorknob. And the last thing we did was check to be sure the front door was unlocked. And we went to sleep, and we got up in the morning, and we came sneaking in the living room. Phew. It worked. Our toys were right beside the front door, and our stockings hanging over the doorknobs were full. Well, that year, when we put away all the Christmas decorations, we took those signs down and we packed them away with the other decorations. And the next year, when I was 9 and my little brother was 7, we put the signs back up, and Santa Claus came in the front door. And then we packed them away with the Christmas decorations. And the next year, when I was 10 and my little brother was 8, we put the signs back up, Santa Claus came in the front door. The next year, when I was 11 and my little brother Joe was 9, we put the signs up. Santa Claus came in the front door. We packed them away. And then before the next year, when I was 12, we moved to our new house. We were packing everything to move, and we came to the Christmas decorations. And there were those 2 signs. And my mother said, "Now, boys, when we made these signs, you were little boys. But you're not little boys anymore, and you probably know some things now you didn't know back then. Do you really think we need to take these signs to our new house? And my little brother said, of course not. Our new house has a fireplace. And so the signs went away, and Santa Claus started coming down the chimney again. And if you happen to come and spend the night with us at our house, doesn't matter how old you are, if you know he's coming, Santa Claus will always come to see you.
Thanks for joining us for A Story from the Appleseed.